Hey everyone, today I'm going to talk a bit about blockchain development from scratch with TypeScript. So this is TypeScript. TypeScript is basically a programming language on top of JavaScript. But the difference between TypeScript and JavaScript is that TypeScript is a superset of JavaScript. What TypeScript offers is that they offer the type checking. Basically, you can implement all the types from like Java or those C# static typing into JavaScript. This is very useful for blockchain development because we need to statically state that what kind of data is our data. And then so from blockchain basically is a block with a chain to the other one. I'll explain in details in the next slide. So this is a blockchain. So it starts from the first block. The first block is also known as the genesis block. So the first block we call it like the ancestor. So what happened is that they will pass all the data into the second block with the chain. So we call it a chain reaction like that. So it moves it into the next chain and onwards like that. So what happened is that so when I pass a block to the other block, this part is being hashed. The process is being hashed, and it is also known as the mining part from the blockchain. Alright. So for the genesis block, this is how our data looks like. So we have a index, which is stating about which number is it. So this is block 0, so the index is 0. The hash, since it's the first block, the genesis block, it has nothing. And then the previous hash is also nothing because it's the first block. And then the nonce basically is cryptogenic nonce. Basically is to state that at which state the calculations. So transaction basically will store all the data. I would say blockchain basically is a database, but you cannot abuse it just like database, because database you can add in a lot kind of data, but blockchain is more towards like a lighter version of a database, and then it's decentralized, and then it's more secure and transparent because all the data are immutable meaning that it cannot be changed after the transaction is done. Okay, so at this kind of things, blockchain, we have for example the transaction. This is a transaction, the amount to send, or we're gonna sign it with a private key, and we're gonna do the transaction. So this is how it works on the blockchain. Alright, so let's get to code. So first, this is TypeScript project. So I'm gonna use Yarn. I'm gonna add the development. I'm gonna add in TypeScript. Alright, and then what other dependency that I need right now? There's nothing much right now. Follow on, I'll add in a few dependencies that I needed. So let's get started here. What I'm gonna do is that I'm gonna create a folder called a file called src, the source folder. Then I'm just gonna create a app.typescript. This is a main file. Then gonna create a new file. It's called block.typescript. So this is a block file, and then there's a blockchain file. Okay, then there's another called the transaction file. So before we start, we need to state I'm gonna start with a block first. So in the block, basically I need to create an interface of how the block data looks like. So as you can see just now in the picture, this is how our block looks like. So it has an index, start with an index, and then a hash, and then a previous hash, and nonce, and transaction, and then there's another key. Okay, so I start with index, which is a type of number. Okay, and then a hash, which is type of string. Then previous hash, which is also type of string. Then nonce, which is type of number. Okay, so but transaction is basically a transaction data, but I'll put it as any type first. I'm gonna change it later. Okay, and then the key is a string. So to start the class, we're gonna export the class first. Okay, so I'm gonna export the class as a default. Okay, so the file is called block. Okay, so in this block, we're gonna implement the interface block data. Okay, so we're gonna initialize it. Constructor, and then alright. So since we know that all the data for the Genesis block is something like this, so this is the starting. So what we're gonna do is that we're gonna do it. So basically it's a public index, which is a number. We're gonna make it a 0, and then public a hash, which is a string. We're gonna put it into nothing, and then public previous hash is also a string to be nothing, then the nonce, which is a number, to be 0, then transactions, we're gonna put it as type any first. We're gonna change it later, so this will initialize it. So this just so key is missing. Key, basically we need to get it, so we need to get the key. It will return the type of string. So basically this gather from the key, we will just we return the key that we needed. So I'm just gonna stringify the transactions, the array, into a string, and then we're just gonna add it this dot index. So this is how the hash looks like. Previous hash plus the nonce. Alright, so this basically will return the JSON file that we needed. Alright, so we had done how the block looks like. Next, we're gonna work on the transactions. So in the transactions, it's also quite simple. We're not gonna do anything big. So transaction data. So we're just gonna do a simple one, just from somebody to somebody. And then there's the amount. So this is a very simple blockchain that just send it's just like a cryptocurrency that sends something, some money to somebody. So we're gonna call it a transaction, which is the implements of the transaction data. Okay, export default class. Okay, so in the constructor, right, so in the constructor we just need to initialize it. Basically it's a public from with a string, then public to the string, and then amount, public amount to a number. So this is how the transaction looks like. Alright, so here we can quickly implement the transaction here. Instead of transaction, the type is transaction data. And then here we also change it, transaction data. Alright, so we had created a block. So in the block, we should add in a feature in the block, is that we need to add in a transaction that we had created. So I need to create a add transaction method. I'm gonna call it a public one, transaction. I'm gonna name it transaction. So the type is transaction data, and then it's gonna return void. What this transaction gonna do is that it's gonna add into the transaction, the existing transaction. So I'm gonna use a spread operator from JavaScript or TypeScript. So this dot transactions, and then gonna implement the transaction. So what this do is that you append the transaction into this. The reason why I want to use a spread operator because I don't want to mutate the state. So basically this will maintain the state. If I use like something like push or I don't know, push, so basically it will deletes the state. So I'll try to make everything in a stateless. This is a functional approach. Alright, so we had done the block and the transaction. Now we need to work on the blockchain. So blockchain is another class that implement all those things that we learned just now. So in the interface of the blockchain data, what this has is that there has a blocks with a block data in an array. So this blockchain gonna this blockchain gonna store all those blocks into the block data. Just quickly copy this into here. Okay, so there's a Genesis block. Genesis block basically is the first block. So we expect that the Genesis block is just a single block. Okay. Alright. So we have other functions. So the first function, we need to add a block. Adding a block, we're taking a block, which is type of block data. Okay, so what we expect it to return is adding a block. We expect it not to return anything. Basically, we just a function to add in a block. Then we can get the next block. Getting the next block with the transaction. In an array, we pass in all the transaction that we want to get the next block. Then we expect it to return a block data. Alright, last is a generate hash. So generate hash, we are using a library, is a SHA-256. So we just pass in a block. We expect the hashing algorithm will return us a string. So this is how the data looks like. Then we can just start the class. So first, this double check, export. Okay, export it. So export default class. The class name is blockchain. So we're gonna implement the blockchain data. Okay. So we start with a constructor. So we expect that whenever you start a new blockchain, there's a Genesis block. And then the Genesis block will be the type of block data. Okay. And then so we create a new blocks. So this is a blocks. Then we set it to be empty. Then we're gonna add the block with add block function. We're gonna add the Genesis block. Alright, so we're gonna declare the blocks first. So the block is public blocks. Actually, I can set it to private. Actually, it's fine. Just set it to public first. Then we just see whether you can make it private. So it's block data. So the blocks is a block data array. Okay. So since we haven't added the add block feature, just then the TypeScript didn't yell at us. Okay. So we are passing in a block. So what we're gonna do with this block is that block data, we expect to return void. So what you're gonna do is that we use what we did just now, but in this is slightly different, because if it's the block is the first block, which is a Genesis block, we want to create our own previous hash. So that's why we need to change it. because in the if we had the Genesis block has no previous hash, so we need to create our own hashes right now. So let's just quickly if this dot block dot length is 0, meaning that this is a Genesis block. I just add in a comment. If Genesis block, meaning that there's no previous hash, there's nothing. So what you're gonna do is that you're gonna make your previous hash equal to a bunch of 0. I think 10 of them. Alright. And then what you're gonna do is that the hash, you're gonna use this dot generate hash function I stated above. So generate hash, return a string. So you're gonna pass in the block. Okay. And then what you're gonna do is that you're gonna push this block using the spread operator. Block. Alright. So we're gonna use the generate hash. So generate hash will get the block of the data is block data. What we're gonna return is a hash. I'll do it in the next tutorial, but right now this tutorial basically is done because what we had done is that first in this blockchain what we did is that we initialize a blockchain, and then we pass in the Genesis block, and then the Genesis block will generate a hash. So and then the Genesis block will save into the block. So if you change the previous block, you break the hashing algorithm from here. Before I end this video, basically I want to show you guys that this code is working and how it works. So what I'm gonna do is that I'm gonna comment out these two feature. Add block. Actually, generate hash is fine. Okay. So what's it yelling at me? So incorrect implementing blockchain data because Genesis block is missing from the type. Okay, yeah, I made a mistake. Genesis block to be block data. Actually, I don't need to add this Genesis block. Okay, so to make sure that everything is working, gonna use this app.typescript. What you're gonna do is that we're gonna import. So what you're gonna import is from the blockchain. From the /blockchain, then we're gonna import a block from the block. Okay, seems good. So what you're gonna do is that we're gonna create a new block. Alright, so this new block we're gonna pass it into the blockchain as a Genesis block. So we're gonna be dot we're gonna let the new blockchain equal to new blockchain by passing it into the block. Okay, so what you're gonna expect is that a constructor that's gonna have a Genesis block into it. So we have a block, so we just can, what you can do is just console log the block. Okay, bc.blocks. So this should be working. So on your terminal, right, tsc initialize it. Right, so it's done. Okay, so what you're gonna do is just gonna run node the src/app.js. So you see that the first block is generated and being stored into the blockchain. So when there's a new transaction, you keep on adding the blocks, stacking up all the blocks. Alright, so this is how it looks like for the end of the blockchain. So that's all for me today for this video. Thanks for watching.